What made you realize there was something off about your friend? So he had a full-on toddler level temper tantrum twice at a group game night. Once because during a trivia question he couldn't remember the planets in the solar system. Then, in the same night, he got busy playing Uno, threw his cards down and stormed out. We all kind of looked at each other and at our friend. That was when we knew he was off. My friends and I were all in our mid-20s and he was over 30. So it was definitely not acceptable behavior. A couple weeks later was my friend's birthday. So we all went out for the night and ended up at our neighborhood bar. He threw another temper tantrum. I think it was over scoring 4 darts or something equally ridiculous. Stormed out and peeled away in his car, leaving us with no ride home. This was pre-Uber Lyft and none of us wanted to spend the money on a taxi. So we sobered up on the 2-mile walk back to my friend's house. Thankfully, she broke up with him not long after. She is now with a wonderful guy who not only knows the planets of the solar system, but also treats her a lot better. He tried to feel me up at her birthday party. I tried to tell her, but she took his side. We're no longer friends. Same. My childhood best friend introduced me to her BF. They hug. He makes the "I wanna lick your pussy" sign, the finger V with a tongue waving through it, over her shoulder. I told her about it and she got mad at me. They ended up breaking up because he was cheating. When she went off on us for arranging a campsite at another friend's wedding, they got married on a 20-acre farm. And the reception was on site, instead of agreeing to split a hotel room with 1 bed. Between 8 people, she got the bed. The rest of us would sleep on the floor. Yeah? No. He constantly made fake social media accounts to try and get her to cheat on him. He started attending my college at 26. Which isn't strange at all. But he insisted on living in the dorms for 3 years. It's not like we're a college town with expensive faraway shitty off-campus housing. He just liked the ego boost of being around kids 8+ years younger than him. My friend was 19 when they started dating. Another thing was that he was a full-time stand-up comedian with his own YouTube channel. He mostly did open mic events at bars, but couldn't stand watching other people on stage perform if it wasn't him. He would sit and seethe when my friend told him she didn't want to leave when watching other people perform. The creepiest moment was undoubtedly when my friend asked me if my boyfriend ever watched bestiality porn. Taken aback, I said duck no and told her that'd be a major deal breaker for me if he did. She said oh. BF told me that every guy watches it. Thankfully they broke up last week and I couldn't be more proud or happy for her. The first time we met her was at a bar. My BF and I arrived early, so we found a Scrabble board on the game shelf and started playing. When my friend and his so got there, literally before even introducing herself, the so looked at our Scrabble board and said, "Wow, that's a lot of small words. Are you guys stupid?" My BF and I were so stunned that we kinda just ignored the comment. Was she joking? Anyway, she, unsurprisingly, turned out to be a psychotic ultraic. When he started trying to pick fights with me in order to separate me from my cousin. We were in our mid-teens. He looked 17 or 18. Very clean cut and geeky in a boy band sort of way. You know. The sensitive one with the glasses. He was well mannered. Respectful to our moms. But he seemed predatory to me. I didn't have the best people around me growing up. So I learned to recognize potential threats early. And this guy set off all my danger bells. Just small things. Like watching too closely to see how people reacted to him. And the way his smile never reached his eyes. I wasn't rude. But I didn't fawn over him either. Once he realized that I wasn't charmed by him, he started avoiding me. Telling her he didn't feel comfortable around me. And she'd have to see him alone. He tried bullying me anytime he saw me. While still bragging to me that he was her protector and her white knight. Found out a few months later that he was actually in his mid-20s. And had a record for stalking and assaulting underage girls. Too bad we didn't know this before he gave her herpes. My best friend started to date this girl about a year ago. She was awesome, always seemed so nice and was very fun to be around. About 3 months into the relationship and everything was going great. Then he asked her to move in with him. The day comes to move in and I go over to help move the heavy stuff and lo and behold she shows up with a 5YO. When he asked who it is she said her son. We were blown away. She never mentioned it. Said anything about having a kid. Her Facebook had 0 pics of her kid. No one mentioned her kid. It was a big cover up and she basically just wanted someone to support her and her kid. He noped out of that one right then and there. The first time I met him was at her birthday party. He shook my hand then proceeded to try and grind on me in front of her and her family. Then when I called him out on it everyone said I was the problem and was just jealous. A year later. It turns out he had been cheating on her continuously and had gotten 2 girls pregnant while dating her. First time I met him. He told me he had the biggest crush on her for 2 years before they started dating. But he was waiting for her to lose her virginity and turn 16. He was 33. Edit. We're in Canada and age of consent is 16. Still ducking gross. When he installed some kind of app on my best friend's computer so that he could control the mouse with his phone. I think this was 2 months after I met him, 6 months into their relationship. I thought that was real ducky but haha it's only a joke. Why do you think it's weird Gan 1 Lin 2? About a year later. He asked her to sign into Facebook to see if Facebook was working for her. Later that day she came over worried and asked me if he could have saved her password even if she told Chrome to not save it. We kind of bounced ideas around that. No. I don't think so. I mean unless he put a keylogger on his computer. But that would be messed up, and sure enough. That's exactly what he did. Notable favorite, after breaking up. He also tried to pose as me on Kik so he could talk to her. He used a username that was like Gan 11 inches too so it was easily mistaken. The whole relationship was a ducky mess. When my husband and I were helping them move and he would only speak to or answer my husband. I had an idea of how to move some stuff up the stairs and the guy just blew me off. So I told my husband to casually mention the same damn idea and poof. It was an awesome idea so we had to try it right then and there. This always put her down and she would just take it. In the end he broke up with her because he felt she wasn't thin pretty enough for him. Then would get mad at her for trying to move on and tried to sabotage every relationship she tried to have. I ended up ending the friendship because I couldn't stand listening to her complain about how he was treating her and she would keep going back. He was cuddling with her when we met and refused to even take his hands off her for 1 second to shake my hand when I offered it. He just looked at my hand and held her in closer. She thought it was sweet. I thought it was rude. Turns out he didn't much care for women who he couldn't hold in and he found many such women in the course of the marriage. Whenever she would be having fun, he would pull her to the side and whisper lecture her about how she looked stupid for dancing, laughing too loud, shit like that. Spoiler, 6 years later and the divorce is finally underway. He is genuinely concerned that I am going to turn his girlfriend gay. He goes on and on about it. Well beyond a joke. And she just rolls her eyes. No idea what it is based on. But he's obsessed. My friend So in high school had a skinned cat hanging on his wall. I knew right then that he was ducking crazy. Thank God she isn't with him anymore. Edit, he had just graduated. I was hanging out with them in his room. Look up and see this pelt with head and everything. I obviously ask what the duck? He then brags about how he healed it and skinned it himself. I love cats and was disgusted and horrified at the same time. I don't think I ever left a place so fast in my life. He seemed like a normal dude. But my first thought when seeing this poor kitty was serial killer. Edit number 2, it was just your average house cat. We'd invite the 2 of them for dinner. And he'd repeatedly tell Mayasu and me that the 4 of us should play a do it to the end game of strip poker. He put emphasis on the word poker. He called her because the baby woke up and the baby is her responsibility. He went off about how she wanted the baby, so it's not fair that he has to wake up and change a diaper. It was her first night out in months and he wanted her to come home to change a diaper. She hung up on him. Where to start? The double date we went on where he corrected her on the difference between UFC and MMA and she turned into the corner of the booth and didn't talk to anyone the rest of the night. How he wasn't allowed to hang out with me either because I was dating someone and they might have hot friends, or I was single and needed a wingman. There was the time I used my dad's truck to help them move and she got mad at me. I don't remember why, I just remember her friends doing almost nothing and then leaving before we were done. The final straw for me, I decided she was an abusive shrew long before this, was when we were working for his parents' band on a riverboat concert. She got mad that we were hanging out. Literally just talking on a small boat. She left the ring on the table and left the boat the second it docked. Unfortunately they made up after this and have been living together for the last year. Hoping it ends soon. We played D&D with him and it seemed like every week he'd say rule number 1. Don't touch the kids. He was a teacher, he always meant it as a joke. And it always made sense in context. But it didn't sit right with me. For one thing, no one thought it was that funny the first time. So why call back to it? Also, the regularity with which he said it made it almost seem like a mantra to me. They arrested him last year for allegedly Snapchatting with an underage girl he met over the internet. In hindsight there were a bunch of other warning signs too. But that was the one that initially weirded me out. Was friends with this guy for a year while deployed overseas in the UK. His wife was always just plain mean to him in front of others. Like on everything, i.e. calling him stupid. Talking about their failing sex life in front of him to friends. Telling a real man would earn more money for the family, let alone she was also calling her 2-year stint in the UK her vacation from work. She also refused to stop hanging out with his male friends, who she always would stay with even overnight. After one nasty comment she said to him in front of our boss at a retirement dinner. I said in front of him, "Dude, your wife is a rig." A week later, while he was at work and thinks she's in the States visiting her mother, he comes home to an empty home. Everything was gone from couch, bed, even his laptop and video games. He calls the cops thinking he's been robbed. Turns out that his future ex-wife came back with her family and movers. Cleaned out the home. His savings accounts, everything without a word. He lost his home and was forced to move into barracks. I just said to him, "I'm sorry dude, but your wife is still a rig." He hated her spending time with me. Snide jokes about les lovers and wondering about the true mature of our relationship. The day we met finally, he told me that muff munching can't compete with a good hard dicking. Then he started insisting that I was closeted and obsessed with her. My boyfriend was just a beard. Funny thing is, I was meeting this girl after 5 months. He was scary, controlling and insecure. 4 years later, they are sadly still together. I have given up at this point. She messaged me to let me know she wouldn't be on her phone until she got a new one. BC the one she has is busted. When I pressed a little, he had thrown it and stomped it when she complained about it dropping calls and having a sheet battery. So, typical best friend, I'm like, I would make the bastard pay. Blah blah. Fast forward a few hours. He is on her Facebook Messenger, reading our conversation, trying to justify it to me. It gave me the willies to have him read our conversation. He has also thrown a remote through their plasma TV when he was mad. I know that he will be violent with her one day. If he hasn't already and she is just keeping it secret. It makes me sick to my stomach. My friend randomly made an Instagram and only followed his GF's mother, sister, and some of her friends. Naturally I was confused why he didn't follow his best buddy, me. So I followed him and he followed back. I asked him if he saw a picture I uploaded and he said, "Oh yeah, I didn't make that." My girlfriend was looking at my new phone and it had Instagram pre-downloaded and accidentally clicked it and it automatically made an account for me. I replied, "Oh. So it automatically knew to make an account with your name?" A username with your name. A profile picture of you and her. Have one post of you and her. Make a cheesy bio about your GF. And follow her family and best friends? Oh. And it followed me back weeks later, so it must be acting on its own well after she accidentally pushed it once. Only thing he could say is that the internet is crazy and you never know what type of RE technology they have out these days. No mate. Your girlfriend is ducking crazy. Someone hacked a friend's boyfriend's computer and posted a bunch of very sensitive photos on 4chan and other similar websites. But for some strange reason nothing else, like his bank records, email, etc., was compromised. How odd that this hacker would only be after her nudes. I immediately said it was him. He's the one posting the pics online. She spent so much time saying what a great guy he was and how it couldn't possibly be him because he had an important job working for a major politician, and that he wouldn't compromise his dream of a career in politics. A few months later, she finally came to realize that he was an emotionally abusive psychopath and dumped him. Then he started posting her name and address, and pics, on fetish websites, claiming that she had a great fetish and wanted people to just barge into her apartment and grape her. She got a restraining order. He kept doing it. And eventually he got prosecuted and is no longer allowed near a computer. I still think he got off way too easy. We were out to dinner. I told them a story about my ex-GF about how she never got a job after we moved. Spent all my money. Forced us to get a luxury apartment and, as soon as she did get a job, started ducking some dude at her job. I literally came home one night and found them in bed. After hearing all this, my friend's GF said, "Wow. She sounds really resourceful. She took you for a ride and got away with it. Good for her." As soon as she was in the bathroom, I told my friend to break up with her. Whilst out at a uni party, I ran into my friend So. He was out of town at the time. She started dancing with me, getting closer by the minute. When she was about to start grinding on me, I asked, "What are you doing?" To which she replied with, "It's okay. Likes it when I flirt with other guys." No, he ducking doesn't. He's one of my best mates. I know him pretty damn well. We eventually convinced him to end it with her. And he's much happier for it. The point at which she called him and yelled at him for 90 minutes. It was on speaker. I heard everything. And holy shit, that chick has more red flags than Soviet Russia. When she came to a party of mine with my buddy and told everyone while my buddy was out of the room that she loves to sleep with everyone and to not tell my buddy because he doesn't know. They broke up soon after. He would always talk about how he was going to be an alcoholic and how he was going to hit my friend. She never thought anything of it until after they broke up. But it bothered me. He also said things about how he was happy her dad was died because he wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. I had a holiday in Vegas with my friend and his partner. It was just supposed to be the two of us, but he asked if he could tag along. Okay. Fine. Started bad on the plane. He refused to carry my bottle of water when I asked him to help me out as I had some bags. He point blank refused to eat at any restaurant I suggested. When I tried to make conversation, he would ignore me or just grunt. Kept commenting on how much alcohol we were consuming. I'm not an alcoholic, but it's bloody Vegas. It was terrible. To make matters worse, he convinced my friend that I had made him feel very uncomfortable for the whole trip. That I didn't make an effort. I was shocked. We haven't spoken in months and I'm devastated. Over 10 years of friendship gone. He threw a fit because she started her period while they were having sex. He said he felt violated by her. I told her to tell him that our underwear drawer feels far more violated by our periods than he ever will. He told her to start stealing from my mother, who was letting her live for cheap in her apartment because she deserved it. Yeah, my mum isn't super easy to live with, but come on. Either move out or talk to me about it. The first time I ever met her, before she had even introduced herself, she stood right in front of my face and asked me, "Don't I have crazy eyes?" I'll never forget the chill that went down my spine in that moment. They thankfully since broken up. There's some good stories there. For me it was quite simple. Friend of mine's cheery outgoing nature was suddenly gone, and when he was around her, he was very quiet and would just sit with her off in the corner. Example, at a party we had. He went to get some drinks and started to show his normal personality with his friends. He looked back at her to make sure she was okay. She was still sitting in the corner and got such a death stare from her. He immediately excused himself and went to sit with her. He told some of us he wanted to propose, and when we all unanimously told him he was crazy and why, he finally got it and dumped her shortly after. He got mad at me and grabbed my waist. I had handprint bruises on both sides. This happened in front of her. Myself and our other BFF confronted her. She was at the time struggling with a reoccurring spontaneous injury that, while it does happen unprovoked, is almost always a result of blunt force. She was homeschooled as a result of this issue. Her parents support the relationship despite seeing the guy. We were in high school when they began dating. Physically attacked me twice. But since it wasn't her, it would be just fine. They are married now. We are no longer friends. When he started changing all his shit up to adapt to her lifestyle, I'm all for adapting to Enso's interests. But he took it too far and lost sight of who he was. Music tastes changed. Got an overwhelming number of piercings. And he just became a less happy person. Years after they broke up, he still isn't the same. When he punched his car and dented it when he didn't get any weed up. I found out later that he uses meth and heroin. He also has sex with animals. That was 2 years ago. My friend finally got rid of him for good last week. He groped me sort of inappropriately when dancing. This was also the guy who said he'd think it would be hot if my friend and I would make out. She's B. Friend no longer talks to me. Nor to another mutual, male, friend who had beef with the so. 2. I think there's a pattern. Can't believe she's still with him. He didn't hang out with my sister until it was super late as duck. Turns out he was dating multiple girls at the same time. Stupid scumbag.